We're definitely live on Facebook and YouTube.
Yep, that is good. So we are behind the scenes here with another episode of Run With It. We are interviewing Kent Wilson, and we are going to jump right into it. You guys ready?
Ready
to hit it.
Let's do it. Welcome to Run With It. We bring you business ideas from proven founders. Each episode, you'll hear a new business idea and the exact steps our guest would take to get started. We're your hosts, Chris Justin.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And on today's show, we have... Let me just redo that.
So close.
And on today's show, we have Kent Wilson, founder and CMO of RV SnapPad. He is in charge of all key growth marketing strategies and tactics, such as conversion rate optimization, social media marketing, search engine optimization, and brand messaging. Kent, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, guys. Looking forward to seeing what we can talk about today and get some new ideas out in the air here.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. Given all the success that you've had with RV SnapPad and the tenacity and some of the things that your family has had to overcome in getting that business going, I think there are a lot of lessons that you'll be able to share with our listeners here. So we will be talking about RV SnapPad at some point during the episode, for sure at the end. But this podcast is about new business ideas, and you're so generous to share one with our listeners here. Tell us about the idea that you would like our listeners to run with.
Sure thing. Yeah. So I'll admit right off the bat that it's a really selfish idea. It's based on the fact that I don't like buying printers. I don't like owning printers. I don't like the entire experience. I don't think it's evolved for years. And I don't know anyone who enjoys buying or owning printers. So I think the other day...
I'm a hobbyist. I'm a printer hobbyist.
Are you?
That's my thing. No, just kidding.
I didn't think that existed. So you're...
Ken was just deflated for a second there.
I was going to ask why, but yeah. So
yeah, I collect cartridges, vintage HP cartridges.
That would be very strange. But yeah, so I think it wasn't too long ago where we were struggling with another printer in the office. And I just said, I wish there was a subscription where we could have, a good printer that just works. We'd pay $10 a month. It would order ink whenever it needed it. We wouldn't have to take care of it. And if it stopped working, we'd send it back and they'd send us a new one. So you see a lot of hardware as service kind of popping up all over the place. I've seen furniture as subscription, and I think it would be nice just to have a printer I don't have to think about anymore. Just works. And if it doesn't work, you send me another one. That's it.
Just to get a sense of, the origin of this problem, in terms of the cost of the printer that you have currently, what kind of level are we talking about? Is it a few $100s? Is it a few $1,000s? What kind of printer?
It's very drastically. So the one I have at home, just as that was a couple $100, and I don't love that printer, but at least kind of still works. So it's there. The ones we have in the office are kind of, more multifunctional. They can do all the things you need in an office. I think they were $500 to $800, and the one before the new one we just got, I don't think it was 2 years old, and it just stopped working, and it wasn't working well before that point. And this one worked well for about 2 weeks, and we're also already seeing gremlins popping up on it. So, and that's been my experience with mid-level printers forever.
It reminds me. Go ahead.
I'm jumping in here. I'm on the attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a printer aficionado.
As a representative of the printer industry.
I feel like printers are already a subscription service. And
are they? Yeah.
We just don't realize it. They sell you the printer usually relatively inexpensively.
Right.
Because they know they're going to get you on the ink cartridges. And that's where they're going to make some money on the back end. And then it's basically a recurring charge. So I think that's interesting. I think people already are sort of doing printers on a subscription service. So it's interesting to see that maybe we're halfway there already. So maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel to get there.
Yeah.
With some foundation already.
It's kind of, the printer is a Trojan horse to sell you ink for the next 3 or 4 years, and it's not explicitly a good service. Even when I have to pick up more ink, I don't enjoy it. The ink's very expensive. The printer isn't optimized for the user experience, I don't think, right now. At least it's not for me. It's optimized to sell you ink. And if you could make that a better experience, I think you'll kind of do something for the business model, which I think currently just pisses everyone off.
This has been a problem for at least 20 years. I think about the movie Office Space, the iconic scene where they take the printer out to the field and
smash it up.
Smash it up. We're gonna have to put that in the show notes. But yeah, you would think that something like that would have been fixed in the intervening time. Why do you think that this problem has not been addressed?
Well, it's funny because it makes me think of another industry altogether. So I listened to a podcast with Dyson, the creator of the Dyson vacuum, and when he came up with his idea,
promote other podcasts here. That's competition.
Hey, I didn't say what podcast it was, so
probably how I built this.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But anyways, he talked about he shopped his idea to Hoover and some of the existing kind of incumbents in the industry, and they all looked at him and said, "We like selling bags." So at the time, you had to buy your vacuum, and then you had to buy vacuum bags all the time afterwards, and they dismissed him because they said, "Our business model isn't really selling vacuums, it's selling bags." So they dismissed him out of hand, and now he's one of the incumbents in the industry. So I think it hasn't changed because it works for the incumbents, and no one's come along and done like a Harry Shave Club, what they did to Gillette, and said, here's a better experience, here's a better price point, and maybe it's just waiting for something like that.
It can be the Elon Musk of printers.
You go.
Talk us through the mechanics of how it would work.
Yeah, I think you need two things. I think you need to redesign the printer, and I am not a hardware guy. I've never designed anything. I'm not an engineer, so maybe it's not possible to design a better printer. I hope it is, given my experience with them. But I think you'd have to design something that looks good, that is really easy to use, and just doesn't look exactly and act exactly like almost every other printer on the market right now. But the other thing is having a good direct-to-consumer experience and subscription experience. If you can do that well, and you can make everything painless, and maybe even integrate some Internet of Things with the printer itself, so it's communicating both with the user and maybe the brand itself. Those are, I think, the three aspects you want to get right for this to work.
I just want to vent some terrible printer related experiences that I've had recently. I had to open, I feel like I'm the wise guy today. I don't even know if I'm going to contribute to the productivity of this conversation, but yeah, I tried to open a new bank account, and I actually opened multiple accounts at the same bank. And one guy handled opening the first account and somebody else handled opening the second. Okay. And they sent me these documents and they said, sign these. Okay, great. I filled them out on my computer. I did the little Mac has a cool, you can do your signature and just put it right on a digital document. I did that, yeah. Sent it back. He's like, cool, your accounts are opened. And then it got handed off to this other person to open the next account. Sent me the same documents. I was like, oh, great, same documents. I'll just change the details and change the name of the business, and I'll use the signature again. Yeah. Like, oh, we can't use e-signatures. You have to print this out. You have to sign it. You know, all this stuff. Yeah. And of course, what was my, then I spent an hour looking for software online, makes it look like you printed something out and then scanned it in, just because it was so ridiculous. All this is just leading me to ask you the question, what are you printing and why? You know, what are people still printing and why are they still printing it? What's the deal about having printers in the first place?
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, you don't even think about a printer until you absolutely have to have one. And then every time you do, especially with my home printers over the years, something goes wrong. It turns on and says the cyan ink is out and you have to go get that before I'll print anything. Or it warms up for 10 minutes and then won't work. Or the Wi-Fi signal won't go back to your computer for some reason. And it's just like, it makes you want to throw it through a window.
That reminds me.
that
Yeah.
Amazon, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, Chris. That Amazon should get in the printing business. Nobody owns a printer, but since Amazon is so on snap delivery, right? They can get something delivered in a few hours.
A day, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're willing to pay a subscription for a printer, why even have the printer at all? You just say, I need this printed. You send it to Amazon and they say, cool, where do you need it delivered? And you're paying your subscription. So you have to worry about like, oh man, $20 for one thing I printed. Nah, don't even worry about it. You just got the subscription. It's like owning a printer. And then they just go to the local Kinko's and have it print out, or, whatever. And they give it to you, they hand it to you. They'll probably be able to hand it to you before you even thought that you needed it printed. But the way that Amazon is going, is there room to change this and not even have a printer, but it's like more of a subscription for like a relationship with Kinko's or something like that? And then the only drawback I see is if you really need something printed in your hands in the moment.
Yeah,
that happen often.
I think that'll work if you live in a dense urban center and you're close to a Kinko's or some sort of other thing.
Right.
But like personally, I live in a town called Langdon, which is about 15 minutes outside of Calgary, which is the major metro here. And there's been times, as I said, I have a home printer where I do need to print something, and Amazon isn't getting it there in a few hours, and there's no Kinko's, and
Right.
and there's other stuff in the office. Like sometimes I get contracts I want to go through in print. There's proofs we do for magazine ads, traditional stuff, where I need to print it out and go over it and see how it's printing. So there is other stuff that I need in my hand right now, and I don't want to I don't want to deal with a printer who can't find the Wi-Fi for some reason.
Yeah.
An obvious objection that I want to try and address here.
Yeah.
As people have moved more to electronic communication, people have been predicting for a long time that printers will become obsolete because you won't need to print things if you have a tablet and PDFs and everything.
Right.
What they've actually seen, though, is printing has increased dramatically since that's happened.
Yeah.
Because it's, for whatever reason, I wonder if you think that same sort of concern redux could happen right now with people working remotely and potentially staying remote for longer. One of the primary use cases that come to mind for having a printout is to be able to give it to someone to see and to pass it along. But if you're all working remotely, then that may not happen. How do you envision printer use overall going on for the next 10 years, 20 years?
I think it actually might increase with remote work because, right now, if you have a bunch of people going into an office and there's one printer there and you just use the printer if it's there and it works. I've actually worked from home in other professions in the past, and I had to have a printer at home because of that. Now, it's not as frequent as it probably was in the mid-90s when people were printing everything. But as I said, something always comes up where you have to have it in your hand. You have to sign this document, or you have to look it over and do X, Y, or Z. And when you need that in your hand and your printer doesn't work, it drives you off the wall.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the specifics a little bit more here. So when you are, what are some of the, what are some of the challenges that come to mind in getting this idea going?
Definitely the hardware design. If you don't have a good printer, this type of thing will be product driven to some degree. People want to know that it's different from what's out there in some way. And then the real thing obviously is the funnel afterwards. If you're going to have to get users in the door, test out the entire subscription model, iron out the kinks, and then be able to scale it. And that's always the challenge when it comes to direct to consumer and digitally native vertical brands like this. So if you can get that funnel right, and if you have a good product, and if you can provide really good customer service, I think that might be the third leg of the stool. That's what has really driven some of the success for my other company you mentioned, RV SnapPad. If you do those three things, it sounds easy, highly challenging. If you do them right, maybe you have something here.
I think that's a great time to bring in some of the experience that you've had with RV SnapPad. Because as we talk about this, I don't know how much it would cost to design a new printer.
Yeah.
You've had experience designing some complicated pieces of equipment that are safety critical for RVs.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine that would be maybe comparable. I have no idea about how much it would cost to do so. So that, and a subset of that question is, do you think that you would need to raise a substantial amount of money in order to create the hardware?
Probably, and it might not even be the engineering part of it. Of course, I've never tried engineering a printer, so maybe it's impossible, but I think it's the manufacturing after that. And that's one of the major hurdles we've tried to overcome with my other company. So, the engineering part, the prototyping, you can get that down, but it's how do you produce this on a mass scale that becomes the really, really big question. And I think it's probably a bigger question with a mechanical part like this, which would be relatively complex compared to like the rubber parts that we're making for my other company.
You don't have to say my other company. You could say RV Snappad.
RV Snappad.
It's it's really interesting for us to get a sense of what you've done in RV Snappad and how that started and the struggles that you've been through and how that applies to getting started afresh with something. Is there anything else you can think of where you learned a big lesson in starting RV Snappad? Maybe you tried something and you realized it was a terrible idea, or you finally tried something, you realized, oh my gosh, that was a great idea, but I can't believe it took so long, that you think could apply to starting a project like this?
Yeah, I think I'll start with where we started at the very beginning and then talk about where we are now, because there was always the giant hurdle, the first one when you start, and then the new ones down the road. So we came up with a new product category in RVing. Anyone who RVs, especially with one of the bigger luxury models, knows that you have what are called jack feet. They're these metal things that come out of the leveling system and help you level the RV in various terrains. Before us, people were putting what were called jack pads beneath them, just blocks or wood or rubber, and you'd have to physically put them down, carry them, pick them up, kind of a big hassle. So we made these basically big rubber boots that snap right onto these jack feet, and they stay on permanently. So people put them on once, they leave them on. But of course, we didn't know if this was actually a concept that would catch on. Not at all. We found a rubber manufacturer in the US. We worked on some prototypes. We got one done for one of the most prolific feet in the market. And then we actually went directly to consumers via just message boards and owners associations, which exist in the RV industry. And we just asked them, want to try this? And some people seemed to like it. We made a very simple one-pager website that was selling them to them directly. Our first sale was made the day after we launched, and the guy was actually an abandoned cart. We asked him why. We went right to him and said, "Why'd you not buy the product?" He said, "Shipping charges." So we took out shipping. And then from there, it was just kind of stoking the fire at the grassroots level, like going on message boards and listening to feedback. And then we put up very simple Facebook ads and listening to feedback, and then going to micro influencers that exist in the RV industry and try this product out. Tell us what you like. And we were lucky, like the product really caught on, the value prop, people love it. And it sort of went from there. So down the road, it got a lot bigger, a lot faster than we thought. And now we are dealing with that scaling problem. We started with that one manufacturer I mentioned, and we have completely overwhelmed them. And we have this unique product that no other rubber manufacturer has seen or tried before. So it's taken us months and months to find somebody else who can supply this product. And we're only now spinning some new manufacturing up. And we're not even sure if they can scale yet. So it's a great problem to have, but it's a very frustrating problem to have.
So maybe there's a place where to foresee in the case of starting a project like this, mm-hmm. if it does become successful, which is sometimes people's dream, that's really not it's not too much time thinking about that part,
right?
Yeah, but also to think if it did become successful, what kind of alternative options do we have to scale very quickly? That's really
Exactly.
interesting to bring to the forefront, because I think it almost, I feel like the traditional model of somebody starting a business, your standard small business goes, it's going to be huge, and then they adapt to the fact that it's going to be small,
Yeah.
right? And then they kind of forget about the huge territory, and
Yeah.
then it's almost hard to get into the huge territory because their mind is not wrapped around it appropriately. Yeah, I like that. At least keeping in your mind, how would this scale? Always be thinking about that and having those options.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that jumps out to me from your story from RV SnapPad is the level of engagement that you had with early customers and the folks who are really excited and enthusiasts in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that you could create that similar sort of focus group with the printer industry?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the other reason I brought this idea to you guys was the day I had the brainstorm. I have a pretty good Twitter following, so every so often I'll throw something out there, and I said, if only there was this printer subscription business where it would do X, Y, Z, and there was just this outpouring of, yes, please do this. Someone else said, if you do this, I will fund it. So, and it was somewhat facetious, obviously, because they could tell I wasn't actually going to do this tomorrow, but it was interesting to see kind of this instant reaction to that kind of idea. So it would be the type of thing where you could maybe just go out there and, I don't know if it's a Kickstarter or just kind of a pre-sale kind of idea where you say, this is what we're thinking of doing. Here's what the printer probably looks like. Here's what we want to do for you as a printer consumer. Sign up and, be a beta tester, or be, the first 1,000 people to get this printer, and let us know what you think.
Another angle on this for selling it could be to companies. A lot of companies have their employees working from home, and I imagine that at least some of them would be okay with paying $5 or $10 a month to have their employees be a little bit more productive. Even if they're 5% more productive, that's a huge return on investment for them, or 2% more productive, whatever it is.
For sure. Like an enterprise sales model would be very interesting, where you could say, hey, spend $200 a month and you get 200 printers or something, right?
Yeah, going back to the idea of this already existing, isn't that kind of something that happens now? Or like when I think of Xerox, the company, right, before when Xerox was the new thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what they did, right? They sold to companies. You got this big giant box. They shipped it in. You probably paid some sort of rental and maintenance fees on it. Somebody came in, they fixed it. They had a kind of a maintenance contract on things like that. Am I wrong on that, or does anybody else have that intuition?
I think there is definitely like a service model for higher end enterprise printers. Like you spend a couple grand, or it's like it's amortized over a number of months, and they'll come in and fix it if they have to. And I think that definitely does exist. It just doesn't exist for me as the guy who wants a very simple printer on my desk.
Right.
And doesn't want to, commit to $2,500 for a quarter, right?
Making it at the level of a Dollar Shave Club.
Exactly.
Yeah, I met someone. I was just hanging out in a bar in Manhattan about a year ago, and this person had started monthly contact lenses, right? And they just send you the daily contacts, pay a subscription service. There's so much room, I think, nowadays for people to transition to those type of business models. Take anything and see if you can turn it into a monthly subscription. There's a few books that are on this topic, and I'm trying to think. Chris, do you know of the names? I feel like there's one about just built to sell, I think is the name. And then there's another book, maybe by the same author, that talks about all the different subscription models that you can create. I'll look it up and maybe find it during this episode, or we'll put it in the show notes. But there's a full book about what kind of subscription models are there, how can you apply them to different types of items, and how you can make them successful. I'll look that up as a ref.
Interesting.
Let's get into some of the action steps for the listener here. Our listeners, they may not have some of the resources that you have at your disposal, Kent. So keep that in mind as we're coming up with some of the action steps. But let's say that there's a listener out there who they have a full-time job. They are trying to do something on the side. They don't have a lot of disposable resources to be able to to invest in this, but maybe they have some friends and family that would commit to an idea that they're really excited about. Mm-hmm. What would you do if you were in that position to get this idea validated and going?
I think the best first step is to find a co-founder. And I say that because RV SnapPad, as a family business, it was bootstrapped. We didn't really raise much money aside from friends and family to start. And we could not have been able to do that without a good, committed team, people with varying levels of experience and talent, just because I came from digital marketing. I was in a digital marketing agency when we started that company. My father, who's still sort of with the company, he had experience previously in RVing, and my brother had gone through business administration and sort of an MBA, and my youngest brother was doing SEO. So we all kind of were able to come together and do things as a side gig or in a garage that would cost you probably a lot of money to do if you're going to hire a consultant or an agency. So if you can find a good co-founder or even a team of people to take sort of a leap of faith with you to start, it's a huge first step, because it's really tough to get beyond that without any real funding, right?
That makes a lot of sense.
That book, by the way, is called The Automatic Customer, and it is by John Warrillow, who is also the author of Built to Sell, which also, I don't know if we mentioned it on that episode, but we've had a previous guest mention that he's basically building his business around that concept. It's kind of one of his favorite ideas, Built to Sell.
In terms of action steps, coming back to that, what other action steps come to mind for you?
Well, once you have a good co-founder you can trust or a team, it's really looking into if you can design the printer. Like, is it possible to make a product that can delight people, that works, and that you can build a brand around? And if you find something like that, that's what we did with SnapPad. We found a prototype and we said, okay, we have this thing. We think it works. We think the concept is good. The next step is finding an audience or finding people you can try it out with. You need beta testers, or you need an audience, or you need just even a small little few bits of customers to test your idea. Do they like it? Where are the rough points? Where are the friction points? And then you just iterate from there. And then that's what we did with RV SnapPad. We had one version of it. We had 2 SKUs. We now have over 40 SKUs. And as we went along the way, we listened to customers as much as possible. And then we just kept making more versions of it based on feedback.
You know, this may seem like an obvious question to you, but it's not to a lot of people. How did you know to listen so carefully to your customers? Because a lot of people don't realize that that's something to do. Maybe they wouldn't call that person that had the abandoned cart. They just go, oh, well, you know, a totally other entrepreneur could have said, they abandoned the cart. Screw it. Nobody's into this thing. Well, other ideas. Yeah.
The funny thing is, it's a mixture of just natural curiosity and insecurity. Because as I said, we came up with this idea. We thought it seems to work, but maybe it doesn't. So we listened to every bit of feedback we got. Another thing that happened was our first version of the product. So our current version has cutouts on the side, and it's for water to escape because it can gather on the top of these jack feet. And our first version didn't have that. And probably 30% of our, initial customers came back to us and said, I'm worried about standing water. And we said, all right, well, how about we make these cutouts? And we released that version probably 6 months in, and our revenue jumped, like doubled all of a sudden. We said, okay, well, that works, right? So we had just little indications that listening very carefully to your customer and iterating on their suggestions works really well, and we've just stuck with it.
So I'd like to go a little bit deeper on that in terms of, if you are really interested in what your customers say, how do you manage your time and energy commitment to actually speaking and interacting with customers? Do you try to reach out to them by the phone? Is it something where you correspond by email or message groups? And where do you draw the line, do you have those? Every business is going to have those customers who want you to bend over backwards to make sure, hey, can you come put them on my RV for me?
Right.
You can't do everything. Where do you draw the line, and how do you manage that curiosity and that wanting to help, but not always being able to?
Some of it is multi-channel, so making sure you have various bits of feedback coming through various sources. So we actually didn't have a phone number initially because we weren't really a company. We were a side gig, a bunch of people trying to do things. We had a Shopify store. So our initial bits of feedback were just watching message boards as people talked about the product when we put it out there, and then using email. If someone put an email down, abandoned a cart, or
So
bought
I just
something.
want to cut in real quick because this
Sure,
is a great example. Did you ever sit down in front of a message board and you've been in front of it for 4 hours and you go, okay, it's enough. I want to stop. I need to stop watching this message board. Or, how do you control your attention so that you're not spending too much time doing that? And maybe you need to dedicate to other things.
Well, part of, as I said, we actually had a team of people. It's very tough if you're one person doing this. So sure. We had my middle brother, who was the guy who had been through business and stuff. He was doing a lot of the message board things. I would look at Facebook. So once we started doing Facebook ads, I loved Facebook ads because unlike Google or display, people would comment. So I would watch comments on Facebook. He would engage with people on message boards if needed. Any one of us would jump into Gmail. And then actually my father was the one, once we had a phone number, he would pick up the phone. So we had enough people kind of on board that it wasn't overwhelming for one person, which was, again, hugely beneficial for us.
Who would have thought that people would get excited to comment on an ad about feet on RVs? It's amazing.
I know it was.
It's cool. I mean, they're just, I'm excited about my RV. I'm excited about this product. I mean, It just goes to show you what a cool thing and you've created and how it serves people.
Yeah, we were really lucky. And of course, people who RV, especially passionate RVers, are doing something they love, and it is very community driven. So they're very interested in all sorts of do-it-yourself solutions and new gadgets that you can apply to the RV.
I think that this goes back to the printer idea is who are the geeks?
Right.
Who are the geeks on printers, and you want to get into their world? Who are the people that are already having chats about how printer functionality and how to optimize it, and where do you find the best printer? And I think if you can get in on those communities where people are just really obsessed with printers to the point where you're like, this is weird, but it's great, then you get in those groups and you found your home, who you want to serve, right?
The other thing you can do is try to find the people whose pain point you are solving the most. So what happened to us over time was our core customers are retired. They have the biggest RVs, which are the biggest pain to get underneath. And they also have the most money, obviously, because they have those big luxury RVs. But we also see a lot of people with infirmities or problems with their knees or back. We see a lot of veterans because we've had people call customer service and ask about, which one do we get, and almost come to tears because they said, we think your product will drastically change our lives. And, we didn't get into it. We didn't even have an idea it would be that important to some people when we started it. But if you can find that core of people whose pain point you were really alleviating, they will become advocates for you.
I love going at this from the angle of humor because people, like you said, people just liked your comment and, because they're just frustrated with their printer.
Right.
I just Googled or searched on Facebook to see if there were any literal groups where they just make fun of printer problems. I did not find one directly.
Yeah.
But I can imagine somebody could create a meme group around printers and people's problems and, hey, post your printer complaints and post yourself beating up your printer with a baseball bat or whatever it is.
It's hilarious that you bring that up. I just want to jump in because my other idea immediately after we talked about the subscription was another service where you send us the printer you hate and we destroy it on video in some sort of dramatic fashion, and then we'll send you the video and you can laugh at it.
Those are collateral businesses. Those go in lockstep together.
Yeah. That could be a marketing campaign. Exactly.
Yeah. I heard a story of someone who, just to prove a point of the power of getting an audience through a Facebook group. They created a Facebook group where it was all about Republican and all the memes and all of this and all of that. And they built it. And, of course, those people were really all about it and, And then once you knew who that audience was and it had, millions of members in this group with memes, now you could create a marketing campaign towards those people.
Absolutely.
And market them things that they would want to sell. And the sort of funny, maybe sad part about the story is the same guy created a group for Democrats and Republicans. He didn't care, who it was for. He just realized people get obsessed about a topic. And if you want to create a group that allows them to obsess over it, then you also can find an audience that appeals to a specific topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing that's really worked for us in RV SnapPad was micro influencers and it's people with 10,000, 20,000, sometimes less sort of followers. And we've had some on YouTube drive tens of thousands of dollars in sales over a couple of weeks. Just because their audience is so engaged and they care about everything they say. And they're not these huge celebrities. They're just people who are genuine, love what they're doing, and have an audience that appreciates that.
I think it's time for our rapid fire question section here.
Okay.
If you're ready for it.
Okay. Yep. Let's do it.
Jumping right in. Okay. Printers, baseball bats. Explain the idea to your mom.
Okay. Hey, Mom.
Wait, is your mom part of the business? Wait,
she's actually part of customer service right now. Like, we expand so quickly, we just grabbed everyone in our circle. Like, we need help right now. So yeah, she was our first.
That thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I think it's simple for my mom. It's like, she doesn't like dealing with printers at all. So I'll say, if I could send you a printer that you pay $10 a month for, and it works all the time, and we have instant help for you, and you never have to worry about it again, would you do that?
Do you think this is a 6, 7, or 8-figure business?
Yeah, how big can this get? I know it's like a home printer's $1 billion business in the US alone. I think I looked that up. So I'm gonna say 7, but maybe it could get bigger than that.
Who does your first dollar come from?
Oh, good question. If this worked, I would buy it. I'd be the first customer.
That's a BS answer. Give us a different one.
All right. Who would I sell this to first? That's a really good question. My brother's father-in-law. He's semi-retired, but he's very, very busy. And he works from home all the time. I think he'd love it.
What would make you quit this idea?
Very easy. Like, if I can't make a printer that's worth selling, that's the first step. And if you try this, you put it out there to 100 people and they go, meh, then yeah, you quit.
And what is the first action a listener should take?
Oh, wow. Find someone who can design you a printer and let's talk.
Awesome. You made it through the rapid fire question.
Yeah. Only stumbled on one of them.
No, you did great.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, we are coming up on time here. Tell us a little bit. We've talked about RV SnapPad. Tell us a little bit more about where people can go to find you and about that story.
Yeah. So we're on rvsnappad.com, obviously online, where we can be found in over 300 dealerships in the US right now. We're talking to 2 major distributors in North America, so we hope to be in over 3,000 dealerships in the next 24 months. We started it because, as I mentioned, my dad had experience in the RV industry. He launched a product over 25 years ago and still had sort of connections and a will to do something. Came together, came up with a prototype, and it's taken off.
Great. So to the listener out there who is on board with their hatred of printers, with Kent's hatred of printers and Ethan's love of it, maybe, weird fascination with printers, take some action on this idea, follow through on the steps that we've outlined. Email us at update@runwithit.fm with what you've done. Everyone who responds will gain access to a private Facebook group of action takers And one lucky listener will earn a free mentoring session with Kent and potentially a business partnership on this idea. Kent, thank you very much for the conversation. It was a pleasure having you and hearing your thoughts on printers and this idea and business in general.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it and look forward to connecting again soon. And
thanks so much, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Same here. And to the listener, we will see you next week.
All right. I'll log us off of the websites, and then we'll stick around on Zoom for a sec.
Cool.